As a missionary serving in Lubbock, Texas, I still remember the very first weekend of my mission. I was serving at a lady's home who was a hoarder. In her home, there was debris everywhere. I remember that dogs were running around in her house. There were cat feces everywhere. There were bugs everywhere. I never lived in an environment like this. And I remember it was very shocking for me. This made me realize how important it is for us to take care of our environment, especially through our personal means. I lived in Idaho Falls all my life and I never lived in anything like this, but I've always been told how it is important to take care of our environment. So, I want to really talk today about why it is important for us to take care of our environment and how we can be stewards of the earth. I want to first share a couple of staggering statistics that talk about how our earth is suffering today. The first one I would like to talk about comes from climate.gov. It is an article that's titled Climate Change Global Temperature. It's written by Rebecca Lindsay and Luann Dolan, published on January 18th, 2023. It reads, the combined land and ocean temperature has increased at an average rate of 0.14 degrees Fahrenheit per decade since 1880. And in this article, it goes along to talk more about how it's because of how we are polluting as people of the world, in the sense that that is what's making an impact on the land and ocean. And since 1880, that's when a big industrial change happened widespread throughout our world. And so that is something that is very important to consider. Another article I would like to read is from the World Health Organization. It is an article titled Household Air Pollution, written on November 28th, 2022. And it reads, the combined effects of ambient air pollution and household air pollution are associated with 6.7 million premature deaths annually. How sad is that, to think that so many people are suffering and dying due to the environment and things that we're doing that are making it more of a negative impact, and that people are dying because of that. I know how important it is to be a steward of the earth after studying more on this topic, and I really want to persuade everyone to know that this is something that we all need to be considering. Also, becoming a steward of the earth can be just as simple as what you can do personally. It doesn't always have to be a worldwide effort. You can be doing stuff that can help the environment day by day. So, with that in mind, I want to go throughout my speech talking about how we as a personal human being can make an impact on the environment. But I also want to go over the points of how we as a community can, and as a global community, can help the environment. First of all, as we're talking about how we can personally simply think about everyday life, like what do you do and what are ways you can save energy? Something that was very interesting to understand for us is that we can help our environment simply by saving energy by turning off the lights when you leave. That's something my mom always reminded me. And when I left the house, was that I needed to turn off the lights. And sometimes we drive home and the lights were all on, and she would get really frustrated. But I think that's really important that my mom told me that, because it saves energy. That is really important. Some people choose to have solar panels because that's a healthier way of having energy. Another thing is vehicles. Vehicles emit a lot of fuel, carbon. And so a lot of companies have started making non-carbon vehicles. I think this is very good because it's helping have less emissions come into the air. Maybe ride your bike to school or walk to the grocery store if you're close by. This will help make it so that there is not as much pollution being emitted into the air. Another thing is living a healthier lifestyle, not always having to support some businesses like big supermarkets, because if we're eating more of on a local level, or if you have your own garden, there's a lot of pollution that comes from the transportation of a lot of semis that are bringing loads and loads of food across the United States and in other parts of the world. That's a huge part of the pollution that comes from that. And so that's why it's really awesome to try it out. If you haven't gardened before, try it and see how that is. The second thing I'd like to talk about is how we can help ourselves as a community. Something that we can do as a community is to be able to help ourselves by recycling, because recycling is super important. As a community, there's a lot of places that do stuff like that, like where you can recycle. The last thing I want to talk about is how we can help ourselves in a worldwide global effort. And by doing that, we can remember that there's a lot of companies that we can support, such as Google and Ford. Those are the two I want to focus on. Google is a great company to support because they're having a lot of awesome ways that they're beginning to implement healthy environment and helping a lot of humanitarian projects. And I think that's really awesome. The last one I want to go and talk about is Ford and an article called Smart Cities Dive by Eric Lawson. He wrote an article called Nine Companies with Great Environmental Initiatives. And he says 80% of both Ford's Focus and Escape vehicles are recycled. So this is a great company to support because they're making a change and trying to help our world be a better place. It also talks about how it owns the world's largest green roof. That was something I just wanted to add because that's awesome. Like that Ford, a vehicle company that creates, there's cars create carbon that go into the air. And so to know that being able to have recycled cars and then also having a big green roof is really awesome. But I think this is such a great time to be able to personally be able to help our community and our personal lives and our worldwide community, supporting those businesses that help the environment. And I believe that this is super important in helping make sure that we can just take small efforts day by day. And so just try to think of ways you can do that. See if you are doing the best at like saving energy and taking care of the world around you. And thank you for listening to my speech.